were produced in 2015, with approximately 6,300 metric tons of plastic waste generated. Of this amount, around 9% has been recycled, 12% incinerated, and 79% accumulated in landfills or the natural environment. If these trends continue, roughly 12,000 metric tons of plastic waste will be in landfills or in the natural environment by 2050. Recycling is a good idea in theory, but how many people actually do it right? The items that can be recycled are aluminum cans, plastic bottles, clean paper, cardboard, and many others. There are many items that cannot be recycled that we think can. Most of these items are used in everyday life, like drink cartons and food wrappers. Billions of coffee drinkers use disposable cups, but only about 1 in 1,000 are recycled. But there is a flaw in the recycling of the so-called paper cups we drink out of at Starbucks. These cups are lined with plastic lamination that makes the cups resistant to degradation. Recycling requires a lot of energy and is very expensive and time-consuming. Current technologies for recycling plastics mainly rely on access to pure waste polymer, which requires costly and time-intensive sorting, and municipal solid waste. Consequently, only 2 types of plastic are recovered and recycled with mechanical processes, which represent only about 40% of the annual plastic produced, respectively.
An additional problem associated with plastic pollution is the accumulation of microplastics, which is any form of plastic that is smaller than 5 millimeters in length. Since plastics are non-degradable and they never truly disappear, they simply just break down into smaller and smaller fragments as time goes on. The result of this is that today, microplastics can be found pretty much anywhere on the globe, from the sediments on the deepest sea floor to the ice floating in the Arctic. According to Laura Parker in her article, "We Made Plastics, We Depend on It, Now We're Drowning in It," she states that as the Arctic continues to melt in the next decade, it could release up to 1 trillion bits of plastic into our ocean. In addition, Parker states that the sand on some beaches of the Big Island of Hawaii is made up of as much as 15% microplastic particles. Not only is this microplastic leading to an increase in pollution, but it also has a direct effect on climate change. For example, as these toxic microplastics are consumed by phytoplankton, the process of photosynthesis gets disturbed. As stated by Brian Banowski in his article, "From Making It to Managing It, Plastic is a Major Contributor to Climate Change," the result is that the carbon dioxide found inside the phytoplankton gets released back into the surface water as well as the atmosphere, and the ocean's natural ability to act as a carbon sink gets destroyed. The result is that we are left with an atmosphere full of an abundance of carbon, which is not what we need right now.
Everything my teammates and I have previously mentioned has supported the need for change. There are many things we use every day that contain plastic without even realizing. Paper cups and aluminum cans are lined with plastic. Microfiber, polyester, and nylon clothes are made with plastics and release microplastics into your waterways with every wash. Even most chewing gum bases contain polyethylene, which is the same plastic that makes plastic bags and plastic bottles. According to the article, terrestrial ecologists should stop ignoring plastic pollution. The mass plastic production started in the mid-20th century. Ever since, plastic pollution is ubiquitous and affecting the quality of human life negatively. In another article called "Why is Plastic Harmful?", it is explained that toxic chemicals disperse from plastic and make their way into our blood and tissue. This leads to cancer, birth defects, and other immune system issues. There are numerous islands in the ocean made of plastic, one ranging in about 617,000 miles in size and weighs more than 43,000 cars. I don't know about you, but an island should not be characterized as made of plastic. This plastic is killing over 100,000 sea turtles and birds a year from ingestion. Fish also ingest these harmful chemicals. Humans commonly consume these contaminated fish in the ocean, meaning we have disease-causing chemicals in our bodies.
So far, we've discussed how relevant and common plastics are in our day-to-day products and lives, the problems with the production of plastics, the recycling of plastics, and lastly, why plastics are harmful. So now the big question is, what should we do? We should focus on a circular model. A circular model depends on improving the economics and technology of recycling and redesigning materials to replace single-use plastics with biodegradable or recyclable alternatives. A true circular model would be reducing and eventually eliminating the amount of plastics created from fossil fuels. So if you take a look at the diagram on the slide, this is what the circular model represents. It doesn't mean that we need to get rid of plastics completely. It just means that we need to stop producing them because the production is what causes greenhouse gases to be emitted. Because if we continue on our rate of plastic consumption, by 2030, plastic-related greenhouse gas emissions will reach 1.34 gigatons per year, which is roughly the emissions released by 295 coal plants. So putting a stop to the increase in petrochemical and plastic production is what is critical in order to address the climate crisis. So we need the circular model more than ever right now.
Finding a solution to the problems related to plastic pollution is a complicated but not an impossible task. In addition, the desire to come up with new solutions has become an issue of widespread worldwide concern. According to A.T. Williams in his article, Marine Litter Solutions for a Major Environmental Problem, the process of finding the best solutions can be broken down into 5 categories, which are knowledge, prevention, mitigation, removal, and behavior change. Adequate management begins with the detailed knowledge of the problem at hand. Once the problem is clearly understood, prevention can be put into place. One way of achieving this is by reducing plastic input through the transition to degradable plastics. As stated by Annette Urbanik in her article Degradation of Plastics and Plastic-Degrading Bacteria in Cold Marine Habitats, this new form of plastic has the ability to degrade in an eco-friendly way by the use of microorganisms. These degradable plastics offer many benefits, such as the reduction of source material and waste, while saving energy in the process. An additional step to solving the problem is through mitigation. This involves any action that allows the reduction of plastic pollution through revision, adaptation, and reorganization of human activities. One example of this is through the immediate removal of plastic that takes place during a beach cleanup. Although this process can be time-consuming, costly, and only remove a small fraction of the plastic that is found in our world, it does still have an immediate positive impact. Several environmental groups such as the Surfrider Foundation, Coastkeeper, and Oceans Conservancy have been conducting regular beach cleanups for the past 20 years, and the result has been an extremely positive impact on the environment worldwide. The bigger picture is, though, that no matter what solutions we put into place, humanity will never achieve a truly clean environment unless there's a dramatic shift in the mindset as well as the behavior of individuals.
Now, as we are heading into a new election year, it's important to note different candidates' stance on the issue of climate change. In this coming election, we have 25 candidates that have announced that they will be running, but with limited time in this speech, we'll be only covering the 3 most prominent candidates: former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont, and our current President, Donald Trump, who is up for re-election. Joe Biden has been an advocate for reducing our involvement in climate change for decades. In 1986, Biden introduced a bill that, if passed, would have established a presidential task force on climate change. Heading into this election, Biden is just as much of an advocate now as he was then. During a campaign rally in New Hampshire on May 13th, Biden claimed, "I'm proud to have been one of the first to introduce climate change legislation. What I fought for in 1986 is more important than ever. Climate change is an existential threat. Now, today, we need policies that reflect this urgency. I'll have more specifics on how America can lead on climate change in the coming weeks." And just yesterday, on June 4th, Biden released his plan in much more detail in a New York Times article titled "Climate Change Takes Center Stage as Biden and Warren Release Plans." Coral Davenport and Katie Gulek explained that Biden's plan will go well beyond what Mr. Obama achieved, proposing $1.7 trillion in spending and tax or fee on planet warming pollution with the aim of emitting the nation's net carbon emissions by 2050. Another popular candidate who will be running in 2020 is Senator Bernie Sanders. As many of you may remember from the previous election, Bernie Sanders has been nothing but vocal about his stance on the climate change issue. In a video posted on February 19th announcing Sanders' candidacy, the Vermont senator stated, "I'm running for president because we need to make policy decisions based on science, not politics. We need a president who understands that climate change is real, it is an existential threat to our country and the entire planet, and we generate massive job creation by transforming our energy system away from fossil fuels and to more energy efficient and sustainable energy." Bernie Sanders is also a major supporter of the Green New Deal, which is a congressional resolution plan for how to combat climate change by hoping to turn the country away from fossil fuels and towards clean energy options. Our current president, Donald Trump, has a very different view from the previous two candidates that I've discussed. Trump holds the firm belief that climate change is of no significance, and he has actually gone far enough to say that it is in fact fake news or a hoax in multiple tweets on his personal Twitter account. In November of 2018, CNN published an article titled "Donald Trump Buried Climate Change Report Because He Doesn't Believe It," in which reporter Chris Silza covered how Donald Trump doesn't believe the findings from the Fourth National Committee or Climate Assessment produced by his own administration, which reinforced scientific consensus that climate change is largely due to human activity and warned of the dire consequences of continuing to emit greenhouse gases at the current levels. Not only does President Trump not believe that climate change is an issue that we should be concerned with or actively attempting to combat, but his administration has gone far enough as undoing various policies that were put in place by previous administrations. The NRDC and National Geographic have kept a detailed timeline of his administration's change to environmental policy, including air and water pollution deregulation and rollback of Obama-era climate rules, to name just a few. The full timeline can be found on National Geographic's website if you would like to look further into what Trump's administration has done, as we don't have time to cover all of the environmental impacts that he has had in the last 4 years.
To wrap up, now that we've covered how plastic pollution contributes to climate change and the potential ways to limit plastic production and consumption, it is clear that the United States should implement the circular model, which focuses on reducing fossil fuels created from plastic production. By cutting off the production of plastics, the U.S. would be tackling the problem at the source, ultimately reducing the negative effects of climate change.
According to A.T. Williams in his article, Marine Litter, Solutions for a Major Environmental Problem, every second, more than 20,000 drinks in plastic bottles are purchased globally, which is greater than 1 million bottles per minute and nearly 500 billion bottles per year. Plastic bottles are only one of the items that you may use in your daily life that have an impact on our environment. With this new knowledge, we hope that next time you're shopping for clothes, you'll opt for cotton over polyester, or when it's time to replace your toothbrush, you'll try out a bamboo toothbrush instead. If enough of us make these simple choices to help do our part to reduce our carbon footprint, we may have a fighting chance against the battle of climate change.